Alright, so hello everybody and welcome back to another video, or if this is your first time ever on the Spilled Coffee Studio channel, welcome, and I hope you have a great time. But anyways, for today's video, I thought that I would just talk about the 3 oil paintings that I had to do for my introductory not oil painting class, but just painting class, that we all used oils. Anyways, so I thought I would just talk about the 3 pieces, and also because I thought this would be an easy video to do, as I was going to film something this week and then I ended up getting caught up doing something else and doing a lot of cleaning and like reorganizing, but yeah. Anyways, let's get to talking. Also, I want to say this is like a completely like new angle that I have never filmed from before. This is my bedroom. You can see like my crazy like collection and like storage like bookshelves and stuff like that, as well as like a pile of like my stuffed animals chilling on my bed. But anyways, let's get into the very first painting. Now, the very first painting, well actually, let me back up a bit. So in my oil painting class, throughout the entire semester, we only ended up doing 3 different pieces. And the very first one was just like an introductory piece, as most of the students in this class, myself included, had never really worked with oil paints before. So this was just like our jump into that. And it was also because our professor really wanted us to see like how well we work with certain things like lighting and stuff like that. So our very first piece was a still life. Our professor had set up like 2 different still lifes, and depending on where you were sitting in the room, that's like the specific angle that you got to work from. For the still lifes, we had to include like a certain amount of objects from that still life. I believe it was like 3 or 4, and then we could make adjustments if we wanted to. Our professor really wanted us to include like a bit of ourselves into this still life, if that's the right way to word it, or just make it unique, make it something different. You could have made it underwater like some people had done, or like completely different, just stuff like that. You could have changed the setting, like the background, stuff like that. And she just wanted us to kind of keep like some of the original things, but also like have a little bit of fun and creativity with it. So for mine, I decided to keep some of the original pieces, while I did change some of the others. Like, for example, in this piece, there is an angel cake, which the angel cake strawberry shortcake character is popping out of. That was not in the original still life. I believe in the original still life, it was like an ugly metal like kettle that totally did not like go with what I was doing, so I changed that. The fruit in the bowl also changed. In the original still life, it was a bunch of grapes, and I changed it to strawberries and oranges because it went with my theme. And as you can see, my theme was inserting the strawberry shortcake characters into them. I specifically did the 80s designs, as those are my particular favorite, and I just think that they were super, super cute. I also included some of the little actually, I think I ended up including I ended up including 2 of the little pets. I cannot think of their names at the moment, but there's Orange Blossom's like little butterfly, and then Lemon Meringue's little frog friend, but those were also included into the painting. And then the strawberry shortcake characters I ended up including was, of course, strawberry shortcake, angel cake, orange blossom, huckleberry pie, and lemon meringue. And that is it. So with my painting, I wanted it to seem like these characters were inserted into the still life and were like having fun, almost treating it as like their own little playground. Hence, like, while angel cake's popping out of the little... Oh, I forgot one. I'm sorry, I just kept talking. I totally forgot about Blueberry Muffin, who is sitting on the blue jar. But anyways, because I don't have the painting with me, as you can see, I just inserted it into this, so I'm trying to work off my memory. But anyways, so like I said, I wanted them to look as if they were treating this like setup as their own personal playground. Hence, that's why angel cake is like popping out of the cake, and huckleberry pie is like boosting lemon meringue up, which I love that idea. However, in the end, I don't think I executed it very well. I wish I had made a way for like lemon meringue to pop out a little bit more. I think she kind of gets lost in everything, especially because she's so close to that pale yellow background that she kind of like fades into it in a way. But yeah, this was my first ever like painting I had done in oil paints, and it was definitely an experience. Oil paint is super difficult to work with. I've said this before. I also am somebody who loves to do like tiny little details in my pieces, and this was such a struggle, especially when it came to doing their faces, because the paint was still wet and I was trying to like do their faces without it getting all blendy and messed up, and it was definitely a struggle for me. Out of the oil paintings I did for my painting class, this is hands down my least favorite. I think the concept is fun, like introducing these characters into like this like little setup. However, I'm not entirely happy with the execution. I don't like the way that the characters looked, especially their faces, and I mainly think that has to do with, like I said, like when it came to like the oil paint and it still being wet and just trying to like get them to work, or trying to get the details without it blending. So some, like their eyes and stuff like look really weird, at least to me they do. Another thing is, which you can totally tell, is the tablecloth. I had changed the tablecloth in the painting. It was originally, I think, a darker color, and I wanted it to be like a pink, kind of like checkerboard or like a plaid. I think it's more of like a plaid, just because I thought that would be like really cute and would go with the theme of strawberry shortcake. But you can totally tell that I got lost with the way the pattern should be flowing, especially towards like the end of like the table. And that's mainly because I was just like really struggling with it. I think I had redone that part of the painting like 3 different times, and it eventually got to the point where I just had to keep it. I couldn't keep working on it because I had other stuff that I had to do. But yeah, that was the very first oil painting I had ever done in my entire life. It was definitely an experience. And also, I want to say this particular piece was 20 by 22. That's the size of the canvas. I meant to mention that earlier because I will discuss the sizes of all of them. But this was the smallest painting that I had done for this class. But now that I talked a little bit about that still life, let's get on to the next painting, which is probably my favorite. Alright, so the next painting that we did was on a 36 by 36 canvas, and basically we pretty much got free reign with this, though we did have to come up with an idea and tell it and like explain it to our professor, and she would give us any comments about like what she thought could be changed or certain things to include in it. Now, as you all know, I love rock and roll. You know, that was a love that I got from my mom, which is why it's like something that's really important for me. As some of you may know, as I've mentioned it in past videos, that my mom has passed away. So like this music that she grew up listening to, and then she introduced to me, and it's now like music that I am listening to as I grow up, it's just really important to me. Now, in this particular painting, it shows me laying on the floor looking at a magazine, with a bunch of records around me, as well as my record player. And there's also like a bag of like chips and like a soda can, just because I wanted to make it look like I was just chilling and like listening to music as I like flip through this magazine. This particular magazine is an actual magazine that I own. It was my mom's when she was younger, and we found it while like going through stuff in like our grandparents' basement. It's one of those rock and roll magazines, which I of course like loved it when we found it. It was from like the early 90s, I believe, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So I'm looking through that magazine as I lay on the floor. I did take a reference picture for this painting. I had done like different setups, and I just used my good old iPhone to take the photos, before eventually like coming to one that I liked. All of the albums that are in the painting are actually albums I do not own. Some of them I do have on like cassette or like CD, but I don't actually own the vinyl versions of them. I used different vinyls that I owned to be like the placeholders, if you will, for like just the photo, just so I could figure out how I would want them to lay and stuff like that. Another thing that changed that wasn't in the photo was the shag rug, which was a suggestion from my professor, and I really, really liked it. It ended up kind of like breaking up what would have been a very just like brown background due to like the flooring, and I really liked it. I also liked how I applied some of like thicker paint onto the rug, which definitely gave it a bit more texture to the piece, which I really ended up enjoying that as well. Now, I do really like this piece, though there is some things that I would 100% change. For example, my hand, it looks like a hot mess. I ended up, again, running out of time, especially because this piece was super detailed. So I totally ended up running out of time and like not getting able to like work and like fully develop things the way that I wanted to. I definitely see myself like coming back to this piece like over the summer and like cleaning up things that I don't really like my hand. My jeans also needed a lot more detail. I think my hair could have used some more detail, as well as some of the vinyls. I wanted to do more of them, but I ended up not being able to do that. I also think that there could have been like a little bit more done to the record player. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the piece. I really enjoy the way that the floor came out, because I cannot think of the name of like this particular type of flooring. I remember my professor mentioned it, but it's like the little like squares, and then there's like the little wooden planks, and they go in like different directions. Really liked how that came out. I was a little bit nervous to do that. I thought it was a little bit daunting, but it ended up looking like really good, and I'm super proud of that. There's also some vinyls that I'm really happy with how they came out. The Buck Cherry one is probably like my all-time favorite one out of all of the vinyls. I think it came out looking really good, though I remember when we did the critique, my classmates and my professor really loved the Highway to Hell one, which I thought was so funny because that was like one of the last ones that I did, and I rushed it, and I thought it looked like really, really bad. I thought it looked like a hot mess, but I'm glad that they liked it. I know that eventually I'd like to go back to the Slaughter album, just because there was like some details in like the spinning wheel thing, I don't know what you would call it, that the girls on, but there was like certain details in that I really wanted to get back to. I just didn't have the opportunity to do so. But yeah, this was a very daunting painting just because of the size. This was like the largest piece I'd ever done. And it was especially daunting because I was doing it in a medium that I am still not fully comfortable with. It's just very difficult to work with. And I'm going to be taking a painting class again for fall semester. So I get to work with more oil paint, but hopefully I'll be able to not be as nervous when I use it and be able to just really like develop the way, like be able to use the paint to develop the paintings in like a particular way that I like. It's just very hard medium to work with. But yeah, this was probably my favorite piece that I did out of this class. Also, I just really like it because I think it really like shows like the kind of person that I am and the kind of music that I like to listen to and the things that I really love and that inspire me. As you all know, I like to do musical makes, which are paintings based off of songs, and it was also like meant a lot to me because it reminded me of my mom, and it was a very important piece for me. But now let's get on to the final painting. Okay, so the final painting in my painting class, which was also like our final, was, again, we pretty much got to do whatever we wanted as long as we kind of described our idea to the professor and she would give us feedback on it. The other requirement for this was it had to be the same size or larger than our very first painting. So it had to be 20 by 22 or bigger. Mine was 24 by 36, I believe. And my painting was inspired by, I know magpies do it, and I believe other birds do as well, but they might collect certain things to put in their nest. And I really liked that idea just because for some reason, I don't know why, but it had just come to my head when I was thinking of ideas for this painting. And I was like, oh, that would work really well because my family, they call me Jaybird. And even though blue jays aren't birds that do this like collecting kind of thing, I thought it would still work because I'm also somebody who likes to collect things and like collect certain memories and do stuff like that, or collect things that remind me of like certain like places I've been or other things. So I kind of took that idea of birds collecting things and adding them to their nest, and basically turning that into a painting of blue jays adding things into the nest. And all of the different objects in the nest are things that have memories related to them. With this piece, it was a multimedia piece. I used foam clay to be some of the little objects that are in the nest, and I just used like tacky glue to glue them on. Though for the necklace that one of the blue jays is holding, I actually had to like do like a tiny little slit in the canvas and like feed the necklace chain through so that I could like clasp it in the back, so that way it just kind of hang nicely. And when I was doing that, like I accidentally like cut the wrong place at first. Thankfully that ended up like not causing like a big mess of my canvas, or else that could have been really, really bad. But all of the different things, like I said, in the nest are things that have memories related to. There's a Museum of Modern Art ticket from when we went in November of 2022. There's the ticket when I went to Tangier with my uncle in July of 2023, so last summer. There's the Metro card from when we were in New York in November. There's some movie tickets. There's one for when I saw like the 4th Scream movie. I think that's the one that had come out. As well as Across the Spider-Verse. And then some of the other little things that are actually like glued onto the canvas are, there's my little froggy mascot, if you will, holding an iced coffee, because, you know, that represents my business. I also just like frogs and then also iced coffee, so it kind of like worked with like the things that I really enjoy. There's a little like weird animal, for lack of a better term, because I don't really know like what kind of animal it's supposed to be, but it was my dog's, our family's dog. It was his favorite toy of all time, and after he passed away, we held on to it, and we still have it. It like sits in our living room, and I had to make that out of clay and put it on the piece because it just reminds me of him. His name was Buddy, and he was a beagle, and he was the sweetest little guy around. He was a rescue, and he was, like I said, he was just like the best dog ever. He was such a sweetie. Some of the other things that are also glued onto the canvas are this necklace, actually, which my mom had got me for Christmas. It's a Tiffany & Co. necklace. There's also a little Rick Grimes, like Funko Pop, which might seem kind of random, but I remember like when I was about like, I think 9 years old, I would watch The Walking Dead with my mom. That's when I first started watching it, you know, at the ripe old age of 9. And that show was actually kind of the reason I really started to get into drawing realistically. You know, of course, as a kid, I did like silly like little drawings and like stick figures and drawings that weren't perfect. But after watching the show, I would try to draw like certain characters and stuff like realistically, and that's what really got me into drawing more, which I find is like so funny that like little 9-year-old me was like, yeah, Walking Dead, and this is gonna like the perfect inspiration for me. But yeah, some other things that are also glued onto the canvas, there's a cervical cancer awareness ribbon. There is a like little star, which is a magnet from Ellen's Stardust Diner, which is a diner in New York City. I think it's definitely like a touristy trap kind of place where all of like the waiters and waitresses and stuff, they are like trying to get onto Broadway, so like they'll sing songs, and I don't care if it was a touristy trap kind of thing, because it was honestly such a great time. Like something about it was like so much fun, and even though I'm not somebody who knows an insane amount of thing about like musicals, I know some of them, but not a lot of them. It's not like like something I'm really interested in. It was such a fun time. It was just so much fun. It was great. I don't know. I highly recommend if you're in New York City going. Even though it's a touristy trap kind of place, I guess you could say, it's still like such a great experience. Other things that are on this little painting include like a peanut butter cookie, because that reminded me of like visiting my aunt when I was younger on Tangier, and she would make these peanut butter cookies, and she would always make enough for me to sell them so I could make like some extra like fun money over the summer. But yeah, a lot of the stuff on this particular painting are just things that I have memories related to. I ended up titling the piece The Nest of Memories, which isn't super creative, but I'm not the best at titling my artwork anyways. But when it comes to like my, like how much I like this piece, I like it, but there's like certain things that I would change. One of the biggest things is the nest. I was not happy with the way the nest looked the entire time. I did end up liking it more after my professor suggested adding in like certain colors that are used in the painting, like some of the yellows from like the Metro card and like the coral from like the welcome MoMA ticket. And that did end up like making it more interesting, and I did like it a lot more. Though I still, in the end, wasn't really happy with how the nest looked. I think it just looks really awkward. Another thing that I didn't really like was like the background. I think that's just because, again, I ran out of time. That was a common theme through all of these paintings, was me not having enough time. And I think there's a bit more that could have been done with the background. But honestly, it doesn't bother me as much as the nest. And I think the nest also bothers me a lot because it's like right in the center. It's like the focal point of the piece, and I just wasn't really happy with it. Though other things that I am really happy with the piece is I'm really happy with how the Blue Jays came out. I remember like my classmates and my professor really liking them. Everybody liked the one that is like placing the necklace into the nest. Though my favorite was the one that's kind of like sitting in the nest, and it's like the really like chubby cute one. I don't know, he was my favorite out of all of them. But yeah, my professor and my classmates really liked them, and I was quite happy with how they came out. I thought they looked pretty good. I was kind of like impressed with myself that I was like, wow, you actually did that. But I just really liked them. And like I said, this was the final for my painting class. So, like I said, we only ended up doing 3 paintings throughout the semester, which is understandable just because of like how long that they took, especially because I think oil paint is just like, it's just something that we were all just getting used to working with. And in the end, I'm happy with how all of my pieces came out, though they all could use some work. But in the end, I'm pretty proud of myself of how well I did, especially when it came to using a brand new medium. I'm especially proud with, even though it's difficult to get tiny little details in oil paint, I was still able to do it, like doing all of the different album covers and like the tiny little like writing on like the movie tickets and stuff like that. I remember my classmates were like, when we did a critique, I remember one of my classmates asking me like, how do you do that? Like, it's insane. Which made me very happy because like my professor said this too, that I'm somebody who loves like the detail and the tiny little things. So I'm very happy that they thought it looked good. But yeah, those were the 3 paintings that I had to do for my painting class. I thought I would just hop on here and talk about them a little bit. I did mention in my university journal flip through video, which if you haven't seen that, check it out. I'll link it down below. But I did mention that I would make a video talking about all of them, and I ended up doing that. So yeah, I just hope y'all enjoyed this video of me like yapping a little bit. Like I said, this was like an easy video, or an easy enough video for me to get out before getting back on like creating some art and stuff, because I really want to get to making things. I am currently filming this on a Saturday, and which means I get like all of next week to work on stuff and film a new video. And I'm going to be also like sketching out a lot of things so that they'll be ready to go for like painting or drawing, and I already have some stuff that's ready to go anyways. But yeah, let me stop yapping. We all know I like to do that. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. Gotta throw in that classic YouTube stuff. But yeah, thank you all so much. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope that you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!